Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Can Do podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. We are moving into season number 4. And if you recall, if you've been listening to this podcast now for a while, last year I had a number of people that I had on the show that I interviewed. I really appreciated everyone who was a part of the show, the time that they took, and the information and wisdom that they shared to me and also to the listeners. I had such a great time interviewing people, and I really want to get back to that. People that I know, people that I don't know, people that I have learned about through books or other ways or other people. And today I have a new guest on the I Can Do podcast. His name is Mark Bossert. And Mark is a friend of mine. We met a year ago, as you'll find out in the podcast episode, through the Ultraspeaking community. And I want to read his bio before we dive into the show. Mark is the owner of TopLocalRankings.com. He is a public speaking coach at Ultraspeaking.com, a husband, a grandfather, parental unit caregiver, interested in everything, former national martial arts champion, and we talk a lot about that, cross-country skier, trekker, mountain biker, nature lover, vegan, lover of science, metaphysics, dogs, cats, animals, life, and Donna, his wife. He goes on to say in his bio, for this action figure, nothing is more important today than I choose to feel happy. Everything else flows from that. I really like his bio, and I had two thoughts after we got done with the interview. The first was what I wanted to call this episode. And in the beginning of the interview, as you'll hear, I really begin with this idea of happiness. He talks about that in his bio. And so the episode is going to be called The Pursuit of Happiness. And I know that's a movie and a book, but I really like that title because Mark has been pursuing this idea of happiness. And so I hope you enjoy the episode. Here we go. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm really excited to be here with you, Benjamin. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. So it's a true honor to be here.
Yeah, well, it certainly is a blessing to be able to talk to you. Mark, you've been a big encouragement to me. You know, we met over a year ago now through Ultraspeaking. And one of the big things I remember about you has been just the encouragement. I can remember playing those games and you would always encourage me. And so I really appreciate that too. And I think that says something to who you are. And for those who are listening, Mark is an amazing man. And he has a lot, I think, to share with all of us here today. And I asked for his bio, and I loved your bio. And I want to begin with something that you said there, and this can kind of lead us to wherever it may take us. You said for this action figure, talking about yourself, and I love that, nothing is more important today than I choose to feel happy. Everything else flows from that. I'm curious, can you help us? Can you share with us, you know, how does this come about for you, this idea of being happy? There are so many different podcasts that are out there about the art of happiness. What does that look like for you, and how does that work for you in your life?
Well, there's many layers. So the first layer was me once I went into recovery, that's a story you're somewhat familiar with. You know, I realized that I had issues with alcohol, and I chose to go, you know what, I can ride this garbage truck all the way to the dump, or I can get off. And so I was fortunate enough to get off. And part of the process of that is taking a look back at what have I done in my life? And in that process, I looked at all the things I'd strived for, all the things I'd wanting to be rich or wanting to be powerful or famous or blah, 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 all those things. Why did I want those? And the net result was, well, if I get rich, then I'll be happy. If I get powerful, then I'll be happy. If I get more control over my life, then I'll be happy. And I went, there was like a blinding flash of the obvious of like, well, what am I doing? Why don't I just be happy? Take the shortcut. And so I made it a practice. I do it daily. I write down my intentions in the morning. Nothing is more important today than I choose to be happy. Yeah. And there's a few other ones along with that, but that's a core. What I also discovered along the way as part of the recovery process is a spiritual process. I found that when I got that alignment with happiness, I felt like my life was going in the right direction. And when I felt angry, sad, depressed, whatever we would normally qualify as negative, I wasn't aligned with what that higher power, the direction my higher power wanted me to go in. And it just was like, oh my God, another blinding flash of the obvious. It's a speedometer. It tells me where I'm going. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. I'm not going to feel those other feelings. I have to shut them off. I can't feel angry or scared or afraid. I'm going to feel those. Right. But it's not about indulging and embracing them and, being angry for weeks on end. It's about noticing it and going, I'm not in alignment with the direction that my higher power wants me to go in. And okay, I'm going to indulge in a little bit of appreciation. I love this where I live. I love the fact we have a pool. I love the weather, even though it's been too darn hot, et cetera, et cetera. And getting back into alignment of being happy. Yeah. And then suddenly magical things happen. Yeah. Good stuff becomes easy to come into my life. I allow it in rather than fighting it off.
You've said some really powerful things here. Now, this idea of being intentional. When you start your mornings, and I know everybody today is all about the morning routine and things like that, and we can talk more about that. Are you doing more like journaling? Are you doing like a gratitude? Is that how you're kind of getting this intentionality each day?
I start my morning with, in most mornings, not always, but most mornings I start with meditation. Okay. At some point, like generally first thing, I'll wake up, I'll do the necessaries, I'll meditate, and then I'll go into I'll make my coffee, take care of feeding the dogs. Then I'll sit down and I have my spot and I have my little ritual so that I get myself into the mindset, okay, I'm setting up my day now. Yeah. And that's where I use writing as my tool, because I find that really makes it focuses my mind. Yeah. To write my intentions down for the day. I don't have a lot. This has morphed over I've done this probably for 6 or 7 years now. Okay. I've had longer intentions. I've narrowed it down into what are the 3 kind of core intentions that I want to run my day through. And I write those down. And there was times when I would write 2 or 3 pages of those same things, trying to, now it feels like I've got to a place where the momentum is there after that many years of daily doing it, that it's one time focused, really clear intention. Okay, I got it for the day now. Now my day is good. And then I'll think and process what do I want to get done? What are the things I want to accomplish today? What do I have on the agenda? How do I want to approach coaching today, or talking with Benjamin today, or whatever?
This is fascinating because I think you're touching on the idea of habits and training yourself to the point where, so for example, I like the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. And I listened to a podcast. He was on the Essentialism podcast with Greg McCowan. And I really liked what he said. So in the journal, for example, it has, three major tasks, to really move forward with your weekly or quarterly goals. And when he was being interviewed, there were certain things like exercise. There were certain things like, whatever other habits that he had, that they wouldn't go in there because they were just automatic. And it sounds like that's what you're saying. After 6 or 7 years now, you don't have to necessarily do this for hours at a time because it's almost become automatic for you. And I think that's something important for a lot of people to understand. People want habits to form in a day or 2 days. And if you can, take us back to that time. And I know you and I have talked offline now about your recovery with alcoholism. And I've shared some things about my dad on this podcast, and some things to you about my father, about the fact that he was an alcoholic. How you had those habits that got you to that point of alcoholism, and now you have changed so many of those habits. Can you walk us through that journey of, if you can share some of that, how you got on that path of alcoholism, how you made that decision, I'm going to stop this and go in a different direction and create these better habits?
Well, I've never done anything straightforward. There was a nice, easy path, it seemed like. So, I grew up only kid. Both my parents were alcoholics. And there was a period of time where I drank a lot as a young man. I got married. I stopped drinking. I didn't drink for quite a while at all. And then it seemed like, I used to have fun doing this, forgetting all the horrible things. When my dad, who's been in recovery for a long, long time now, thank God, is, he has, one of the things he says is, let me see if I can get this right. I didn't always get in trouble when I've been drinking, but every time I got in trouble, every time I got in trouble, I'd been drinking.
Yeah.
And that was really true for my life when I was a young man, teenager into early 20s. And that all disappeared. Oh no, it was just the fun, the parties, the enjoyment suddenly became this thing. And it rapidly escalated again in later years with more money and maybe a little bit more control, so that was an issue. And then the wake up point really for me was when my son said to me that he was a heroin addict, and it was like my world blew apart in a microsecond. And mostly about feeling like an utter failure as a father. Just how could I have done this to the one of the beings that I care so much for, that I did everything possible to make the best possible life for. Well, guess what? People make their own choices too. So it is what it is. And we got busy with getting back into recovery. And that was sort of the tipping point for me. It was like, okay, let's get real. Let's look at everything. And then I was 100% committed at that point. It was not like it was an issue with, I'm going in and out and having struggles or anything. It was just like, okay, that's off the menu now. I will not drink today.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you sharing that story. I seeing my father drink forced me to kind of wake up and to realize some things too. I was drinking in college, and peer pressure, and then a little bit when I got out of college. And I'm thankful that I eventually stopped, because I just saw so much that happened with him. And it's interesting, just knowing some things about you. You seem to be very disciplined. And whether it's with meditation in the morning, being intentional about the day. You just said it a second ago, I'm not going to drink today. Do you kind of take this approach in life where I'm just going to try to focus on today? Is that how you've been able to accomplish so many of the things or overcome so many of the things you've experienced?
Well, again, there's two couple of layers to that. So the later realization is it's a major component of recovery, one day at a time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's many things that are more truer than that. Certainly from my experience, that there's no other way to live life except moment by moment, one day at a time.
Yeah.
But why that felt like home to me so powerfully, I think, was I had an experience when I was 18. I got into the martial arts. I'd always been bullied as a kid. I was the only kid. I was never particularly great at sports. I was the grinder. I was the middle of the pack kind of guy, middle of the road sort of person, friends with lots of different people, but no super close buddies, and martial arts just seemed like something that was, Bruce Lee movies were really cool at the time.
Yes.
They were new. We went to the first ones, the ones from China where he was, not Enter the Dragon and all that stuff, where it was Hollywoodized and the real, the rough stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I went, wow, I would love to, feel some control. Again, that wanting control. And so I started training, and slowly but surely I noticed that the harder I worked, the better I got.
Yeah.
And there was this discipline that was instilled in this experience of this person who you would look at objectively, of all these guys. There was a fighting team. We were going to go to this national championship, and who's going to be the guy who's going to go, who's the strongest and the fastest and the most skilled. And, I was middle of the road for everything. Yeah. The last guy you would pick, essentially. But what I had been doing, and this was a result of Sifu suggesting it, was visualizing every morning and night winning. And I got into it. Like I could feel it powerfully that I was winning. And I worked hard. I ran 4 to 6 miles every day. I had a 300-pound full of wheat kick bag in our garage, and I would do 300 kicks every night. I mean, I kicked like a mule. You get that thing swinging to you, and you can make pop hard enough to stop that or move it back the other direction. Yeah. Your timing has to be precise and is good. So anyways, that led to, fortunately I won my weight class in my division, it changed everything. There was a whole spiritual experience that happened within that too. That also informed my life. But as far as the discipline part of it, that I was able to do that and have that experience without, it wasn't like playing basketball on a basketball team or football or volleyball. I did all that stuff too, but I mean that it wasn't the same. It was me doing it. And I was the one who had to get up and go for the run. I was the one who had to do the sit-ups and go fight at class, but still there was this whole chunk of time where I had to do it. And if I didn't, I was not going to do well. It opened up, so I would allow that to happen. Yeah. And it changed things for me. I learned that then became, without even realizing, I kind of labeled it later perhaps, but I was a grinder. The only way to get something done was to work my butt off. To just keep after it one day at a time. And that's how I got good in sales. I wasn't awesome at sales right off the start, but I got really good at being a salesperson by working my butt off at it, doing the fundamentals every day.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we built our business, was exactly the same way.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. While you were speaking, I was thinking about, and I know you listen to a lot of podcasts, I think probably every day when you're walking the dogs and things like that. Discipline equals freedom. So I was thinking about Jocko Willink and all the things that he has said. What kind of martial arts were you involved in? Was it jujitsu? Was it judo? Was it karate? What was it?
It was White Crane Gong Fu.
Wow, I've never heard of
Hai
that.
Gong Fu.
How is that? What's the difference with that? And I know a lot of people are familiar, like with jujitsu, and Bruce Lee did Jeet Kune Do, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Well, that was his style. That was the martial art that he developed from his own experiences. So I think I forget which one it was. The one he did was a very close contact where you do a lot of trapping, and they have a Wing Chun, and they have a dummy that they practice, the wooden dummy that they practice on.
Yeah.
So it's a street fight, basically martial art, where ours was more of a little bit more flowery and all that stuff. All the stuff you throw away when it comes down to you got the gloves on and somebody's trying to punch your head off. You got to go to what works.
Yeah. So how long did you stay in the martial arts?
Well, it kind of evolved. So I did about
Okay.
5 years of that particular style, and then I did jujitsu, and even before that, I did Aikido for a few years, and then jujitsu, and then Jeet Kune Do. I trained Jeet Kune Do with my son, actually. He was being bullied in school, and so we went in and got into fighting again.
Yeah. No,
And I was in my late 40s. That was a whole different experience.
Yeah. No,
you don't heal as good when you're 40 as when you're 18.
I took some jujitsu classes. There's a instructor here in our neighborhood, and so I trained with him for about 6 sessions. And I can't do everything just with my heart condition and my device that I have, but man, it's an amazing workout, and it's such a great feeling. It's totally different than lifting weights in the garage or at the gym, where you're just using your entire body. And it's amazing just, to see body weight. He was way smaller than me, and he's just dominating me. So it was a very humbling experience. And I really love what I'm hearing here, Mark, because to me, I see this thread, I see this theme. And for those who are listening, I talk a lot about I can do and mindset and habits and things like that. And what I'm hearing from you over and over again, is the power of discipline, the power of mindset, and how there's almost this ripple effect. How you talked about how it had an impact with your son or for your son, and also even with your career as well. So to me, that's very fascinating to see just how, I think a lot of times people think discipline is not good, right? Discipline will hold us back, but everything you're saying, discipline is what it was that opened it up. Would you recommend martial arts then for young people today? The challenge today for a lot of young people, video games, social media, a lot of things online. What advice would you give for those who are listening, young men, young women, when it comes to maybe getting started with martial arts?
I couldn't recommend them more highly. The only proviso caution I might suggest is check the school out. Make sure that they have the right attitude. A good martial arts school will have in my opinion, will have some level of spiritual content, because kung fu, karate, jiu-jitsu, not so much Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but some of the Japanese jiu-jitsus, where Brazilian jiu-jitsu comes from. They do have a spiritual component where meditation is part of the practice. It's not about just going out and getting in a fight. It's about self-defense. It's about effectiveness in being able to to control yourself, to be aware of and be in the moment with yourself in all conditions, whether it's, somebody's wanting to get into your face about something, or were you even more aware of it and you saw that that was a potential like a block away and you went, I'm going this way. And you missed that's the highest form of martial arts as far as I'm concerned. You just don't get into those complications.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that actually takes a strong person to do that, because there's always a danger of wanting to, let me show you what I can do to you and to prove yourself. And the best way is to avoid it completely. Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, we're talking about happiness, and I want to get back to that as well. So it sounds like meditation, your visualization, martial arts, all of these things have brought you a certain level of happiness. I know family brings you a lot of happiness as well. How do you, or what's your philosophy with respect to family and work? One of the big things out there today is work balance. Do you believe in work-family balance? How do you handle so many different components? So you got a lot of things going on in your life with your company, with coaching, family, exercise. How does that all fit in so that you can maintain this happiness in those relationships with your family?
Well, it's been a process. It's been a learning process of trying to negotiate and find a path to make that work. It's a lot easier now that I do have my own company because I can determine my own time. I'm not in a position at this point in my life where I'm feeling like I have this massive pressure to make lots of money. So I'm much more relaxed about things. I'm actually not very interested in adding more clients. I've got enough. I'm not interested in growing my company at this point. I have investments. I have, I got some gray hair, so I have some resources at this point, so I can choose. I can pick and choose a lot easier, which is something I would wish on anyone at an earlier age than it took me to get there. Because there was a lot of stress and strain and worry along the way to get here. But to get here now is the discipline was clearer as I went along. What actions each day were making things work better were clearer as I got older and learned the hard lessons. The cause of my gray hairs.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that too, because just hearing you say that you were able to watch the the original movies that Bruce Lee had, I think it's fascinating. I can remember when I had his martial arts book as a kid, and I was recently looking for that, and I was like, man, did I sell this book? Because I bought it years ago, and I'm pretty sure I sold it. And I'm not happy about that at all. I just bought some old VHS tapes of some of his movies. So I'm kind of...
Fist of Fury.
Yeah. Fist of Fury and things like that. I know that you're interested in everything. And it sounds like in this journey, and I love this idea of now you have some gray hair. Now you have the flexibility that you want. For those who are starting off, for those who may be in their early 20s or 30s or whatnot, can you share your journey with respect to careers? I know you've done a lot of different things. And as you share, what wisdom do you want to give to our listeners about choices? Because you mentioned the word choose. You get to choose. And Dave, I was just reading a magazine today just about freedom with respect to finances. And it's not just with respect to money, but the choices that we have. So how did you get to this point where now you get to set your own schedule? And what words of wisdom would you like to share along the way?
I think the words of wisdom I would say is try and find what you enjoy and dig into that and apply the whatever level of discipline or habit you feel comfortable with to getting better at something you enjoy. do not chase money,
Mm.
because that's a endless merry-go-round that will never work out in my experience. Once I let go of that.
Give us more with that, if I can interrupt. What do you mean by it will never work out? Because that's what everybody seems to be doing. Well, I won't say everybody, but if I can just get a little bit more, right? If I can get that promotion, give us some more with that.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to that feeling, that speedometer or fuel gauge or whatever you want. It's like, it seems like that there's a voice in the background going, I need to get more. I need to get more. And so then it's like being at that crossroads and going, you know what? The sign says one way. But I'm pressed for time. I'm late. I know if I go down, I'm going the wrong way, but that's the shortcut. I can get out of here. I'm going to take the shortcut.
Mm.
And so it seems like the promotion or the chasing the money is the shortcut. And yet it feels wrong. You get that gut feel that, you know what? I'm not a manager. I'm going to go from the thing I love in sales, for instance, just as an example, to being a people manager. And I don't really get how to manage people, for instance. That was my experience for myself.
Yeah.
But for sales, I'm in the pocket. I can sell the heck out of anything to anybody if it's for their benefit. And then it's for my benefit too.
Yeah.
That was always my guiding light in that regard. But when I chased the promotion to get to be a boss, and then I sucked at being a boss, I wasn't a shortcut. It was, it was the exit was basically what it was.
It brought more pain to you when you thought, it brought more pain when you thought it was actually going to bring something more beneficial to you.
Exactly.
Mm.
So that's where I think it, trust your gut a little bit. And one of the things that I was thinking about this morning, I've come to the realization, this is my sponsor. We have sponsors in recovery that are kind of the older brother who's been down the path. And my sponsor talks a lot about, there's the power of a pause. You'll relate to this.
Yes.
The power of a pause can change your life, to change your arc of your life. 5 or 6 of those pauses. If I'm at that place at the crossroads and I'm looking and that's the fast way out, but it's the wrong way. And I'll bet there's a cop down there, and pause and go, and it feels awful to go that way. But, if I go that way, I'm following the right direction. I'm not going to get stopped. I'm not going to get a ticket. I'll be 5 minutes late instead of half an hour late or an hour. I'm going to go that way. The power of that pause. And there's many options. We've all had those experiences where if we just would have taken a minute or 10 minutes, walked out of the room and made a better decision, everything would be different.
Yeah.
And that's one of the wonderful things I love about what we teach in Ultraspeaking is the power of that pause when we're speaking, because it's exactly the same thing. We can recover. We can make a mistake and recover in the middle of a speech.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. It's a life lesson.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We can use that same power in our life, in our daily day-to-day, that I cannot say that thing I wouldn't automatically say to my wife and go, you know what? I love this woman with all my heart. I'm not going to say that to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like that behavior of my grandchild, but I love them with all my heart. I'm not going to say that to them. I'm going to take a pause.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I got off on that tangent and how you got me there, but
no, this is so good. The power of the pause is really good. And I know I've done some podcasts on this. There's a story in the Old Testament, a man by the name of Nehemiah, and he heard how some people were being treated, and it says that he was very angry, but it says that he pondered in his heart. And so when you were talking about this, my mind went there with this idea of the pause. And when you mentioned that job promotion that you got, where you were working with people, now you're a boss, and you're like, it didn't go well at all. I thought that was so powerful, because everybody today, it feels like, I won't say everybody, but so many people, it's all about, and I know there's room for this, right? With branding, and everybody wants to be known. And we've talked about social media and, college football now, players now can get money off of their images and things like that. But really giving ourselves that space to say, okay, if I make this decision, what might be some of the long-term ramifications? And one other question, going back to that job here real quickly, when you found out, oh wait, this promotion, it's not that good. In fact, I'm not really as happy here. I cut you off. I think you were saying it caused you to leave the room, or to quit the job. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Walk us through that. I'm curious with that. How long did it take for you to find out, if you remember, this isn't going to work? And then the next job, how did that affect you with the next big decision you made?
Well, I have a more recent and more poignant kind of experience with this, because when we started our company, I had big plans. I wanted to grow into a large SEO company, and I could see there was a huge opportunity there. It was just laying there ready to be picked up. And so I got some funding and I hired some people. And fairly quickly, it became obvious within 2 or 3 months that I didn't know how to hire people, because they were all wrong, all of them. They were, and basically it came to a head with, we got some inheritance money. We took 2 weeks off and we went away for a little holiday, came back, and everybody had been on holiday for 2 weeks. And that was not the plan.
Oh no.
And suddenly now the cash flow is zero, and I'm counting on that everybody's been doing jobs here.
Yeah.
And so it was like one hard conversation after another of going, I'm sorry, that's it. You're gone. I'm sorry, that's it. We can't survive and keep you. You're gone, you're gone, you're gone. 5 of those. And it's like, holy smoke. And that at that point I went, okay, I either have to learn how to be a manager, and I don't want to, or we're going to just have a smaller company, and I'm going to be a lot more comfortable with it and do what I really love to do, which is I'm very good at this technical aspect of things. I know how to figure it all out. Google is easy, honestly, for all their AI and all their money and all that stuff. It's not difficult for me. I'm just going to go with what I'm good at.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier something about that I wanted to circle back to about, what advice would I give to younger people? There hasn't been a better time to be a 18, 20, 30-year-old person in this world, in terms of all the opportunities that there are, and the massive change that we're going to go through. And old geezers like me, for the most part, can't grasp what's going on.
Yeah.
And the people who are growing up within that stuff are going, wow, this is so cool. We're moving into a world where it's like the movie Ready Player One, where there's this merging of digital and physical reality, and imagination and intention is going to become so much more important to how much money and how much value and how much joy you can have in your life. So I would say embrace that stuff. If you want to be a gamer, find out about DeFi and cryptocurrency and play games and make money from it. And if you want to be, into any kind of green technology and all that stuff, it's going to dwarf what we've seen in oil. And as big as the oil business has been for the last 100 years, it's going to dwarf that. Has to. We won't survive. I live a couple thousand miles at least north of you in Texas. And we've just been through where we've had temperatures in our little town of 45 degrees. That's 116 2,000 miles north of you. That is not normal. 116. It was like
When you say
walking outside.
116, are you talking about explaining
Fahrenheit?
Fahrenheit, yeah. Oh, so 45 degrees Celsius.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Hot.
Mark's in Canada, so yeah, you're seeing a lot of effects on that. Yeah, that's fascinating. Tell us a little bit more. You've mentioned it a couple of times, and tell us a little bit more about your company, top local rankings. How did you get started, and what do you do? What kind of services do you provide?
During one of my, when I was in my 40s, early 40s, I went back to school, basically. Okay. And I got a job at the Lottery Corporation, which is a big government, sort of quasi-government corporation, runs all the gambling and lotteries in British Columbia, our province. That's typical across all of Canada. And I've been building websites for people. This was about 1990. I'd started in 94, I think, was the first website I built for money. This is about 98, 97, 98. And so they hired me to be the first internet guy back then, because it was pretty new. And they spent a whole bunch of money to teach me how to do search engine optimization and sending me on, and it was brand new. I mean, Google had just started, basically. So I was doing SEO before there was a Google.
Wow.
And then so out of that, so I got a lot of years of experience of doing this. And so then at some point I went, you know what? I've worked for a lot of other people doing this, consulting and all this stuff. I'm going to start my own business, because I saw one of the consulting companies I worked for, I did some local SEO, which is just a little subset of search engine optimization for a small business in the local area. And it changed their business within a month. It changed everything for them. And I went, there is an opportunity here, and a lot of people don't know about this yet. So that was when I started my own company. And that's what we do, basically. We figured out a formula a long time ago of doing this, exactly what we're doing over Zoom, of having a conversation, and creating content really quickly. Because somebody who's running an auto repair shop, or is a physiotherapist, or is a real estate agent, or whatever, is not going to sit down and write an article. But they have to create content for their website. They have to. So what's the easy way? Record a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, if we're going to talk about, coaching Ultraspeaking, you're an expert. Well, I would ask you questions about coaching Ultraspeaking. And within, 5 to 10 minutes, we have great content created that we can transcribe. We share it out everywhere. They do it for a while. They get tons and tons of business out of it.
Wow. That's amazing. So I got to ask, after you made that website, or after you helped that local company, and 1 month later, you saw this big change, how long was the pause before you made that leap from working for someone else to yourself? Do you remember?
I remember exactly, because it was, I was afraid to move, to jump on it. And
what were you most afraid of, if I can ask?
That I wouldn't be diligent in doing it. Okay. There were so many, the glittery object syndrome was still really strong. So there was a million things to do, and a million, Facebook is now cool. Oh, there's people making $17,000 a month. Facebook had just started selling Facebook stuff. Oh my goodness. Oh, maybe I should learn about that. And there's a million things to choose from. And so I knew I had that propensity to derail myself in that way. And I went, I don't know. And then the gig ended at the consulting company, and I went into, a good friend of mine hired me as back into sales for radio company and a radio station, and made a lot of money doing that. But by the end of the year, I had started my company.
Nice.
Because I knew already, I was looking at this radio station and going, oh man, these guys, this is like a slow motion. They're in the middle of the rail crossing and they're being run over by the railway and in slow motion, and they don't even know it. I mean, the internet's just going to wipe this terrestrial radio stuff off the map, and they have no idea what to do about it.
Yeah.
And it really became a point where we used to have these big sales meetings around this big round table. And one guy goes, hey, I just got this lead from somebody from Twitter. And everybody knew I'd ranted on a little bit about the internet as I do.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, what's Twitter? And all the heads turn towards me.
Oh no.
And I'm just going, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. I am a square peg in a round hole, because I'm all in on the internet stuff. By that point, it was almost 15 years of building websites and marketing. And I mean, I ran a poker company in 99 before 9/11, 2000. I just got back just before 9/11, and in Antigua. Back before, just as online poker was starting to become a big thing. So that was another jumping for the money instead of doing something that would make me happy, because I was away from my family and I was miserable.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Mark. You're making me think of a couple of things. There's a book I read recently called The 10% Entrepreneur. And it sounds like you kind of did that, right? Where you were with this radio company, but then by the end of the year, you see this writing on the wall. It also sounds like, which is fascinating to me, that you have been kind of ahead of the game in some respects, where everybody's looking at you with Twitter and they're like, they have no idea. And you're like, oh yeah, here's my confirmation right here that I'm in the wrong place. There's a coach named Rich Litvin, and I listened to his podcast. It's called One Insight. I don't know if you've listened to it or not, but it's a pretty good podcast. And he's got a book out called The Prosperous Coach. And in his intro, and it made me think of you just now, he said, when you're the biggest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. And everyone looking at you with Twitter, like, hey, tell us. Were you doing something? I know you were building the websites, but kind of, it seems like you were almost a step ahead or two steps ahead. Was that just luck? Was that just curiosity? Have you thought about that?
Well, because I was going to school in electronics, and as the internet was sort of starting, it was a natural. This was happening.
Gotcha.
This is taking place, and I was interested in it. We didn't do anything in that, it was electronics technology, so it was all the electron theory and flow and capacitors and blah blah, how to put a circuit together. But I was interested in what was going on because we were talking about it in school, and I would go outside and I started to learn. I learned HTML. I went, okay, well, how is this? I have a computer. What is this stuff? Oh, cool. Yeah. And then I could build a website. And then somebody asked me, could you build us a website? And I went, yeah, of course. And I just did it. I didn't really know what I was doing, and they paid me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think you just touched on something there. The idea of learning, being curious. You went back to school when you were 40 or so. And John Maxwell, in his book, The 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth, he talks about when you continue to work on self-improvement, you'll never be out of a job. And just listening to you and this whole story of where you are now, owning your own business and discipline and being curious and figuring things out and seeing the writing on the wall and taking that leap, Real quick here, when you made that decision, you took the pause, you're going to leave this company, you're going to start your own company. I know you said fear was something that that I guess was kind of holding you back a little bit. When did you know, oh, this is going to work really, really well? This is it. When did you know?
It took a while. It was a grind for the first 2.5 years, which is not unusual when you start your own small business. I mean, I had clients consistently all the way along, but it always felt like it was, I mean, I went from going, these big checks, because I was making a lot of money selling radio. For me, they were big checks. I hadn't made money like that since I was in gambling. It was really nice. And my wife really liked it. And she was going, what did you do? What did you do?
Yeah.
Now she's really thankful, because I'd be dead probably by now.
How so? The stress or what?
Well, just the stress and just being in that round peg or square peg in a round hole. And gotcha. My way of dealing with it at the time had morphed into a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
And at that point I was on that road where I was drinking myself to sleep at night, continuing on where it started as fun. And then to continue to be able to go to sleep, it was, couple more, and then finally pass out kind of thing. And you can't do that very long without dire consequences.
Yeah.
Either you lose your job, or you can't perform anymore, or you get sick, or the marriage breaks up, or it has a detrimental effect.
This goes back to what you were saying though about which path you're going to take, right? The shortcut path, you're making a lot of money, you're probably buying whatever you want to buy, things are sufficiently covered, but there's not a lot of happiness. There's a lot of pain, self-inflicted pain. Absolutely. And so this other path is scary, and there can be some other challenges, but at the same time, okay, look, I can't stay in this position. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of times people experience that, where you're touching on so many of the same things you've talked about earlier about money, that you can have all this money, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to be happy. In fact, it can create even bigger problems. So being content with what you have, and then the patience of building something where, okay, now you can still control, and you'll have a lot more balance, even though it's scary. So that to me, that's something really encouraging to hear, that you took this different path, seeing this writing on the wall of, if I keep going down here, it may not always end well.
Well, I had, that's hindsight mostly.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the moment, it wasn't like, oh, if I keep doing this, okay, I'm gonna. Gotcha. But there was a slowdown because the stress level had shifted, and I felt like I was more in charge of it. It wasn't this external. You've been in sales, you know what it's like, that pressure to perform, to reach your goals each quarter, each month, whatever it is. I mean, sales is the ultimate zero to hero thing.
That's true.
Especially if there's no base, and you eat what you kill, and that's it. And you didn't make any sales this week. Well, it's looking a little grim for the month or the quarter. So, turn the jets on, get busy, get on the phone, let's get going. It's not going to happen any other way.
Yeah.
Applying that from that external pressure, though, of having someone else saying, this is what I got to do, to being internal, changed a lot for me. And so I took a lot of pressure off of myself, because I was in charge of it. That seeming control brought me more into alignment, without even realizing it, with where my higher power wanted me to go. Yeah. And so I felt the booze cut back quite a bit, and I got healthier again.
Yeah.
I was getting fat. I got back into martial arts. I got, a little bit more fitness happening, even with the stress of, the company blowing up or almost, and saving it and going through all those things.
Yeah.
It still felt like I was my own man. I was doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And there was certainly moments of tremendous stress, but joy, because of, the win was mine. It wasn't just, a sale that I closed that made more money today, but the company was making a lot more than me.
Mm-hmm.
I was making it all.
Well, this has been really good. I want to just ask a few more thoughts, and I'll let you go and be respectful of your time. I will admit, and I definitely need your help with this. SEO, I feel almost overwhelmed with it. I see things on WordPress. I see different businesses out there. What's legit? What's not legit? All right, if I do this SEO, if I invest this money, everything's going to change with traffic. For people who are listening, who are maybe started a new website or blog or company, tell us how top local rankings will help them, and the importance of using these search engines and understanding how all of it works.
So let me preface that with, we're not looking for any new clients. So this is not a sales pitch.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can call me, but the odds are I'm going to say, you know what, we're full, we're busy, we're happy right now. We're not going to take on any more new clients. In all honesty, the basics of search engine optimization are straightforward. There's all kinds of fancy little gimmicks that everyone's coming up with, and it's all about links. It's all about the content you create. It's all about, are you using structured schema data, and blah, 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 all these things. And I know all these things intimately. Basically, it comes down to building a really good, fast website. So good hosting on a fast, whatever system you use, whether if that's WordPress, then getting the right theme company that has a very fast, and they optimize their code so that it's quick, because speed is a big thing for Google right now and in the future. And then it's about creating content. If you can create content every week and grind it out, 5 years from now, it won't matter what Google does in terms of their little tweaks to their algorithm to switch things around, because they make 500 plus of those changes every year. You can't keep up. I can't keep up, and it's my business. And at some point I gave up and went, we found the answer. Holy cow, look at this. I've got one client who's an auto repair business. We've been doing it for 9 years. We've been creating weekly content, weekly video content, the car repair of the week, believe it or not. He's world renowned. People have recognized him on cruise ships in the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
Are you Bernie Pollock? I listen to your show. I watch your videos.
Amazing.
He gets calls from all over. Now, this is not necessarily helping his business, that somebody from North Carolina is calling Vancouver to ask about, well, I want to repair my diesel engine. It's doing this. That doesn't, man, I'm 6,000 miles away. I can't help you.
Yeah.
But 99% of all his new customers come from those videos. And all we have to do at this point is just make more. We've got close to 1,000 videos out there now. And it's an engine that just keeps driving the business. He's busy. He was busy as all get out all the way through the pandemic. Yeah. He's busier now. His business is rocking and rolling, dominates. And that's not just him. That repeats for all my clients in that way. So no magic bullet. Create the content, transcribe it, share it out there weekly, grind that out. And in 6 months, you'll be thanking me, because that's the best SEO advice I could give anybody.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for that. With respect to social media, a couple more questions here. We'll play some rapid fire here. What are you doubling down on when it comes to social media? By that, I mean, what are you using? What do you recommend when it comes to social media?
I'm very torn about social media because I've seen the data for a lot of years, and it doesn't, for a small business like that, again, that's my market area of research or of expertise. So a local business, in my town of Coldstream, for instance, they're not going to get any business from social media. Sure. As a consultant, as a coach, I would LinkedIn's everything. If you like Twitter is a bit of a time suck. I mean, you can end up doom scrolling on Twitter for hours. Mm-hmm. The other products owned by the other Mark, I am zero fan of. Absolutely avoid with the plague, deleted myself off of there and disappeared and will never go back. Yeah. So I don't want to be the product for anybody.
Yeah. So people can find you then on Twitter, LinkedIn. I know you're not taking new clients, but what's your business's website?
toplocalrankings.com.
Nice. Well, I think you and I could talk for a couple of hours. We haven't touched on so many different elements that we definitely could talk about, but I certainly appreciate you being on the show, and you shared a lot about happiness, discipline, decision-making, choosing. A final thought that you'd like to leave to the audience?
Power of the pause. It really is resonating with me today, that is it's so powerful. And I think you experienced this too with Ultraspeaking. When we're talking, to have that confidence, that audacity to go, I can pause and think and come up with the next thing to say that will actually be at least good.
Yeah.
And applying that to an entire life, it's a superpower.
Yeah. Well said. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I love you, brother.
Thank you. Love you too, man. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are in the need or are looking for more motivation in your life, feel free to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog, where you can find hundreds of encouraging, motivational blog posts on a variety of subjects. You can find all of my books, which can also be found on Amazon.com, and other podcast interviews with a variety of people. I hope this helps. Please leave me a rating and a review. I can do, and so can you. Take care, and God bless.